Okay, good evening or good afternoon, depending of your time zone. Welcome to our Data Plus Women Zurich. It will be very special today. Yes, you can click to the next slide. Yeah, so first, only some word about this Data Plus Women initiative. For the one that are new and joining for the first time. This initiative is really initiative to promote women working with our own data, to inspire you, so you can learn and we can learn together. And yes, so if you are interested to speak, please contact us anytime. And I think that yeah, you know, this session is a little special. Usually we have like technical talk, but this time we wanted to make like something more about speaking up. Why? Because often when I contact you or Olivia contact you to come and speak here on this audience, we have like very talented women who told us, yeah, but I'm not good enough. Oh, yes, but I'm not doing anything interesting. And we really want to demonstrate with our great speaker that we have today and that Olivia will introduce you, that yes, you have everything that you need to come and speak and speak up. So next time, I hope that this session will really encourage you and invite you. So next time we don't have to go and search for you, so you speak, but you contact us directly. So just like some words, we will have like global Data Plus Women meetup with very, very good speaker coming out beginning of June. We have like the Chief Advocacy Officer and founder of Alteryx, Olivia Duane, for the Zurich audience. She was a speaker in last a little more than 1 year already, and she was fantastic. We had the privilege to have her a physical event. That was one of the last physical events that we had before this COVID. And I mean, she was awesome and very inspiring. I really recommend you to register. So you have here the QR code to register. I will copy it also on the chat. And obviously we have other great speakers. We have Elisa Fink, a former CMO of Tableau, that she's a marketing mentor. And we have Kayla Guimaros from Google News, that she's a data journalist, and Emily Kohn, that who create this Data Plus Women initiative. So great event also. Obviously, for the one who didn't know us, like we have like the team of this Data Plus Women Zurich. It's composed of Olivia. She's a great data scientist from Migros. I had the great privilege to work with her when I was working at Credit Suisse. And now I'm leading the visual analytic at Fontobel. And that's it. If you want to contact us, we are in social media, LinkedIn, and you have our email. So now I will stop speaking and I will let Olivia continue this journey.
Thank you very much, Annabelle, and for the warm introduction, and hello to everyone here at the event. So as Annabelle already mentioned, it's a very special event because we will talk about, or Verena will talk about how to speak up. And this is actually the reason why we initiated this Data Plus Women group. So it's very an important topic. And as Annabelle already said, hopefully we will get many messages afterwards. So after the welcome, we will have Verena speaking about how to position yourself as an expert and how to actually speak up, followed by a Q&A session. So we encourage you to post your questions in the chat, please. Use the chat, not the Q&A, so we can monitor, or Verena can monitor the questions better. And as this will be a more interactive session, we ask you to participate and to be very active. We already said a few words about Verena, and actually I find just a few words are not enough. I had a look at Verena's homepage, which is also, the link is posted here. And she is so many things, but among all the things, I think I can summarize it with, she is a career coach for women. She is a mom, a working mom, a manager, and she's also a host of the podcast Level Me Up, which is available, I think, on Spotify and iTunes. I already had I listened to it, so please feel free to listen in and to visit her homepage. But I think, Verena, the stage is yours, and for all of you, have fun with the session. I think you need to unmute yourself. Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I can't see you, but that's not a problem at all. I know you're there. I'm just gonna highlight. It's not available anymore, this option. Okay. So, like Olivia said, like Annabelle also said, we often get to know women, or we talk to somebody and then they say, oh, what should I talk about? I don't have anything to share, or I'm not an expert. That is something that I hear quite often. And on the other hand, we complain about that there are not enough women who inspire us, not enough women that we see on stage. And that is something that we want to change today. So I want to tell you a story about a woman that I work with. That was really such a big change from when I got to know her to how she showed up afterwards. So the moment I got to know her, she told me about her story. She told me what she did. She's an entrepreneur, and she has been working in a specific field for at least 15 years. She has a degree in that topic. She has been working as a consultant for different companies. She writes articles for newspapers on that topic. People pay her to do that. And yet, when I summarized what she had just told me, and I summarized it by starting with the words, okay, so you're an expert on, she just said, no. I'm not an expert. And I was kind of, okay, so what did you just tell me? So to me, that sounds like an expert. But in her own mind, she did not see herself as an expert. She said, well, I'm just gathering information from everywhere. And of course, I know a lot because I've been working in that field, but that doesn't make me an expert. I'm not the one who conducts the surveys and so on. I have never written a book, for example, she said. So we had to talk about what is exactly an expert. And this is something that I see very often. And I really want to point out what just happened. She thought that something outside of her would make her an expert, like a degree more, or maybe some more training or some more experience, like 10 years more of experience. Maybe then she would be able to call herself an expert. Or maybe another certificate. If she only got that other certificate from this specialized institution, then she would be able to call herself an expert. And as we can see with her, this is not true, because she already had so much evidence, but she still couldn't believe it. And so what I want you to see tonight is that you can be an expert too, if only you believe that you are one. Because what is really an expert? An expert is somebody who knows more about a certain topic than most people. An expert is not the only person who knows about a topic. And we have a lot of perfectionism around this. We always think, I don't know everything, so I can't be an expert. If I knew everything, if I had read every book on the market, if I had just experienced all of the different all of the different possibilities that may arise in that question, then I could call myself an expert. So we wait until what? Until we are 3,000 years old. And that is really something that I see that men, most of the men, I don't want to really generalize, that really serves us, but we see other people, let's just say other people who don't have that thought. People who just say, well, I know something that you don't know. I'm gonna go on stage and tell everybody. Those who are not interested, they don't have to listen. So that's a completely different mindset. And so we're going to talk about like two things tonight. One is how to position yourself as an expert. And the other one is, and then speak up, because these two things go together. Once you really believe that you are an expert, it will be so much easier to speak up. Because one of the thoughts that keep us from speaking up is that we think, but I don't know everything. What if what I say is wrong? So that's one of the fears that we have that keep us from speaking up. As soon as we accept that we might be an expert too, it will be so much more easy to identify opportunities to speak up, because there are so many. And as long as we don't think of them, as long as we are not looking for them, we won't even realize that they are there. So we will be also able to identify so many more opportunities where we can speak up, that this will also enhance our thoughts about ourselves as an expert. So it goes together. The more often you speak, be it in a meeting or in a webinar, or just contribute something, the more often you speak up, you will reinforce the belief about yourself that you are an expert, because you speak and people listen to you. So I right now want you to give me some of your thoughts. I want to not only be talking to you, you know, I'm a coach, I love to talk with people. And I would like you to put something in the chat box. So what are the thoughts that pop up in your heads right now when you think, I could be an expert? So what are either the buts, but I'm too young. That's a typical one. But I don't have enough experience. But so just put them all in the chat box, and I'm going to collect them. When you think about, I could be an expert, is it possible that I could be an expert? What comes up for you? Okay, somebody says, I think it's Sandra, this is so timely as job applications ask you to relate yourself as intermediate, beginner, or expert level. So what's your thought? What do you think? Because, well, you have to rate yourself at a certain level. So what comes up for you? What makes you cross-check one box or the other? And Annabelle says, but my communication skills are not perfect. Yeah, that's one thing that comes up. What if I don't find the right words? It's not my mother tongue, for example, neither for Annabelle, nor for me, not for Olivia either. So what if I don't find the right words? Anelia writes, what if I am blonde young girl in a room with 40 plus engineers. I love that one. I don't know you, and you don't know me, only for a few minutes now, but I've always been the young blonde woman in the room with all of the 50 plus men. Because I was in management positions at the age of 20 already, and later on as well. So 10 years later, I was still the only young woman. At the age of 30, I was still the only member of the management board in a different company, of course, but blonde, blue-eyed, and very young in comparison to all the others. So that is what I find very, very interesting. Even more, that I didn't have any formal education in the field where I was working, and I didn't have any experience either. And that is so funny. People never believe me that this really happened, but I did it several times in my life. I just changed the industry, I changed jobs, and I started all over. That is something that people usually tell me, that is not possible. Well, it is. If you have the self-concept, if you think about yourself as, yes, I can do that. Of course, if you think that's not possible, you won't do it. If you think it's possible, of course it's possible, then you will do it. I will come back to that later. So what's going on in your head when you think I am blonde and young and they are all older and men? What comes up for you in your head? Because that is not a problem. Being the only woman and the only young woman in a room with older men is not the problem. What's going on in your head is the problem. And that is what we're going to change today. Then Olivia says, and that is really something that we can all relate to, but there are other people who know more than me. Yes. Okay, I'm going to talk to that one quickly. There are so many people who know more about the topic that I am talking to you about right now, right? But they're not here. I don't see them. So it's me, right? Okay. Jewel says, what is the definition of an expert? Yeah, so the definition of an expert that I mentioned before, and you might really think about that for yourself for a minute, is a person who knows more about a topic, about a certain topic, than most people. Not more than all the people, the expert is not the only person who knows about the topic at all. So it's just a person who knows more than most people. If you go out on the street and you look at the people who pass by, there are things you know that most of them have no idea about, right? That already makes you an expert in something. Like I'm an expert in my husband. I know most things that I hope not so many people know about him. Okay, so Heidi writes, but I'm too young, too fresh in the industry, haven't seen or haven't experienced enough real use cases. Yes. And you will be able to say that until you are 150 years old, you will still say that. Like the woman that I talked about in the beginning, she, after 15 years of really only working in the business and people asking her to speak on conferences about that topic, she still didn't believe that she was an expert. So it won't come from the exterior circumstances. It won't come from your experience. It's either you decide that you're an expert just the way you are right now. Tomorrow you will be a different expert. You will have some more expertise, maybe in a different field or in the same. But right now, we don't want to focus on what is still missing. We want to focus on what is there already. Okay. Yeah, what else do we have here? So many comments. There's so much I don't know. Yes, perfect. This is exactly what we think. So the typical, the glass is half full or it's half empty. We think about what is still missing. What do I don't know? We even get intimidated by all the things we don't know, because there might be so much more that I don't even know that I don't know. And actually, that is a thought that experts have. Think about it. If you have no idea about a certain topic, and then you read an article about it, and then you think, well, I'm up to date. So my 6-year-old son thinks he's an expert on everything. I mean, he wouldn't call it that way, but he knows exactly everything. And if you have the thought, there is so much I still don't know, but you have an idea of what there is and all the books that you might want to read and you know where to find this information, even though you haven't read it yet, that is what makes you an expert, right? That is really something that might help you. People, scientists often say there is so much more for me to find out. And the people who are ignorant, they have no idea about all of this. So that is really something that makes you an expert. But I might come across too full of myself. Yes, I love that one too. So too full of myself, like like you want to just show off. What's the alternative? That is really something that is a big fear of women. I'd rather not say anything because somebody might think that I'm too full of myself. The alternative is I people please. I don't say anything. I want to be loved by everybody, but also nobody knows me because they can't be against me then. What if one person thinks that you're too full of yourself? 1 out of 10. And 9 people think that was valuable information. That was so inspiring. Thank you. So really, the idea of being afraid of people's opinions about you keep you from people having positive opinions about you. You want to get rid of the people, or just, how do you say? Like here, I'm at the point where I'm missing an English word, avoid. So you want to avoid the people who might have a negative opinion about you, but at the same time, you're avoiding the people who might have a positive opinion about you. And really, the people who have a negative opinion about you, you don't need them. Because these are not your people. These are not the people ever. They will never be the people who help you be successful, and they won't introduce you to new people. Just leave them behind. They won't come along anyway. Actually, the people who have our criticism in their heads about other people are the ones who don't do anything themselves. Like sometimes I get negative feedback, and then I always think, well, who is this person who gives me this feedback? Is this somebody I admire, somebody who does great things, who is a role model for me? These people never criticize me or say, they never do that. So the people who say, she's so full of herself, these are the people who will never support you, and they don't do great things themselves. So it's okay. And really, this is something I recommend with the people I coach. So the women I coach, I really tell them to accept that 50% of the population of this planet maybe might be against them. And the other half of the population will be for them. Instead of trying to make everybody like you. Because this is what we do. But trying to please everybody, we lose ourselves. We lose, and we don't speak up, and we don't take any risks by accepting that 50% of the people will not like us. We can win the hearts of the other 50%. Think about it. I recently read on LinkedIn a post about Angela Merkel, and there were about 50% of the comments were really harsh on her, and the other 50% were positive. So if she had early on decided that she wanted to avoid the negative part, like the criticism and all of that, she wouldn't have been able to be where she is right now. And that is true for each and every successful person on this planet. Really. Show me one person that has no critics, no haters. It's not possible. So we can already in advance say yes to the haters, say yes to the critics. It's okay. I'm gonna do it. Because for every critic that you have, you know you have 10 fans or 9 or whatever. And it doesn't matter. If you have, for every critic that you have 1 fan. I think that's a good trait already. That's a deliberate decision that we can take. So what else do we have? My but is that I'm not a professor. I did not write a book. I do not have a Twitter account with followers. Yes. So what does that make you? Are there experts in the world that are not professors, have not written a book, and do not have a Twitter account? So the exercise that I want to give you, it's as Flores, that you might go out there and look at the people that you admire, and then check. Maybe you find 10 people that you admire and that you think they're an expert in their field. By the way, Annabelle, do you have a Twitter account? You do have a Twitter account. Did you write the book?
No, I didn't write a book.
Okay. Are you a professor?
I'm not a professor.
Okay. You're not an expert.
I am an expert. I know more than maybe 50% of the population.
Yes. So there are so many experts who don't have these requirements. And if it's just a Twitter account, well, open one if that makes you feel better. But I don't have one personally. I think I have one. I just open, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So really, there are so many good comments. I don't know as much about the subject as other people who I would see as experts. Yes, you don't know so much, but you know something else. Like we think experts are like a group of people, a closed group of people that have the same characteristics. And we don't belong there. Okay, that's something that's like the picture that we have. And that is so not true. They're all people and they know some things, but other things they don't. Like, for example, take a project of yours. This was Deborah. Take a project of yours that is very specific. You did that project, nobody else. Nobody else knows the specifics of your project. That makes you an expert in exactly that field. Even if other people might have done similar or other projects that are comparable, but you did only that project. So we're really trying to get our minds away from the thought, but I don't have that, I don't have this, and try to focus your thoughts on, okay, what do I have? What is already there? Think about specific projects. Think about maybe your master's degree thesis that you wrote it in your own very specific way. Nobody has lived the life that you have. Like maybe you have changed industries, so you have a different background that you can contribute. It's the way you think, it's the way you talk is different than anybody else. So maybe sometimes what's really valuable is not that somebody knows all of the things, but that they can communicate them. Because what is it worth if somebody knows all the things, but they cannot really express them? They cannot nail it, for example, and that's one of your strengths. Think about, what do I have that other people, not nobody in the world, but that most people don't have? I'm not so long with a company to speak in front of experts. So what could be the advantage here? When I hired people, when I used to hire people, I would always hang on their lips, because it was something when they were fresh. I was so interested in their point of view, because after a certain time, they would all start thinking like, the company groove, the company culture. They would get blind to all the things that we did, maybe not in a very efficient way, and so on. So all the people that started in the company, I would give them the task to make a presentation to tell us about a certain project they did in the past. And also I told them to write a list of all the things that they saw in the company that were not like clear to them, like questions that would pop up, like, why are they doing it this way? Or why don't they use a software to solve this problem, and so on. Even if most of the questions would be solved by the end of their first 3 months, but at least we could get some of the insights that they would bring. So if you're fresh and young, you bring a different point of view that is so valuable. I can tell you that as a manager, really, people underestimate what, even if it's a stupid question they ask, it's so valuable. I don't want a know-it-all in my team. So you don't want that everybody in the team knows about you or about what you have to share. Why not? That is the question. I guess that's also a fear of what might people think about me. Okay, I'm gonna go just scroll quickly through the questions. Yes. So Christina writes, the managers of my company, they don't consult you for their decisions. Maybe you haven't promoted yourself enough for them to think they could ask you. Think about that. Yeah, everybody seems to be lacking information, know-how. Maybe, yeah, the fear of not finding the right tone and words. What if, like, you're afraid of not finding the right words, so you're not finding words at all, right? So sometimes we think, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so we don't say anything, even not the good things. And that's the same with the people. We avoid the negative part that might be true. We don't even know if there might be some negative opinion about us, or if we might not find the right tone. But by focusing on that, what is missing, we miss the good part as well. And also, we don't get training in finding the right tone, because if we never train it, we want to do it perfectly. The first time we do it, just perfect, like sports I've never done in my life. What could it be? Like kayaking or something. If I go kayaking now and I think, oh, ballet, I haven't done ballet as a child. And if I do it right now for the first time and I would think, what will the others think of me if I'm not perfect? Or I force myself and think I should be perfect. Isn't that stupid? But still, in business, so many times we go about stuff like that. We think, I do it for the first time and I have to do it perfectly. So we should be a little more nice to ourselves, right? Okay. Yeah. We're not confident. I'm not competent enough. So we're going to do a Q&A session at the end, and I want you to come up with the questions again that have not been answered. I'm going to go on with the topic, and maybe some of the questions will be clarified in the meantime, and if not, we can address them in the Q&A session. So what I wanted to show you here is that what really keeps you from speaking up and from being the expert is that you personally think you are not. And even if somebody like a superior of yours would come to you and say, you're an expert on this, your thoughts would go like, oh, he thinks I'm an expert, but I'm not. Like, oh, I hope they don't ask me any questions. This is what happens. I know it because it happens to me as well. This is the human brain, my sisters. But we can do something about it. As soon as we realize how our brain works, we can do something and we can change our thoughts, because this is what we're doing right now. We found out what our internal thoughts are that are really the thing that keeps us from speaking up. So I'd like to give this example of the Austrian Chancellor, Sebastian, is it his name, Sebastian Kurz? And he's the youngest chancellor in, I don't know if is it the whole world, or he's at least very, very young. And the way he steps up, the way he shows up, the way he speaks, you can see that in his head, he doesn't have this inner critic dialogue. You're too young. You don't have the experience. You don't know anything. Like he says, shh. I'm sure he has these thoughts as well because he's human, but he can control them. He tells them to shut up because he's working. Okay. So all of us humans, we do have these thoughts. The question is, can we control them? I call it mind management. That's what I do as a coach. We train ourselves to manage our mind so it doesn't race around crazy and keeps us and blocks us and does whatever it wants to do. We are the bosses of our brains. And that means that we detect thoughts that block us from going out there and being successful and just having fun, actually, because these thoughts the thoughts that we have seen here in the chat are all thoughts that don't feel good, right? They're not fun. They make our lives very hard. And so really what we need to do is to separate the thoughts that are blocking us, that are not serving us, and choose thoughts that help us. Like I gave you the thought or the question, how could it be true that I'm an expert? And then we send our thoughts in the direction that we want them to go. Like then, when we are in that space, we can come up with ideas. It's true. I could talk about that. I could talk about this. I could say something, maybe ask a question. That's all. Sometimes that is necessary. And this is the space where we want to be most of the time. We will come back to the other space because we're humans. Sometimes we will come back here and we will just feel worthless and panicking and all of that. But it's our responsibility for our own lives to detect what is happening, and that it's not something external. It's not anybody. Nobody can force us to be in that space. It's us who we can decide where we want to spend our time and our energy. So that is really the magic. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is that so many of us see the stage, and I call this a stage. You can imagine whatever stage you want. Like sometimes it's just a meeting. When we think about the stage, we tag it like it's an exam situation. And I've seen this in most of the comments that have come in so far, is that what we really think is that we are like in school and we must not make any mistakes. So any mistake is a red cross and gets punished. And of course, if we see the situation like that, it will make it will make it horrible for us to speak up because we're afraid to make mistakes. Yeah, I know we're conditioned to think like that because of our school system. Thank you. But okay, it's been like that. We're grown-ups now. We can decide for ourselves where we want to send our thoughts. So what I recommend is that you choose deliberately to see a situation like this one here, not as an exam. That's also where the fear of weird question comes in. People say, but what if they ask me something and I don't know it? Yes, you are not in an exam situation here. You're a speaker. You're giving some impulse. You are really inspiring people. If you shift your thoughts from exam, like the picture that you have in your head, from the exam situation to the inspiration setting, it will change completely. You're just inspiring people. In an inspiration situation, you don't have to know anything. You can just ask some stupid questions and you will still inspire people. Because what you want to do is help them have their own thoughts, their own fantasy, their own ideas and creativity. It's not you, the one who has to provide everything, like all the know-how and so on. That is the exam situation. Like they're all looking at you. And what if you don't know that one thing? Actually, life is not like that. Life is not an exam situation. You might just inspire somebody by something you say, and they have their own thought process and they think of something completely different, but they're so grateful that you talked about that because it made them think of something, how they could solve their problems. For example, you don't have to have the answer to all of their questions. And that is why when you decide to speak in, like on stage, wherever, I just call it on stage, and you go about it with this attitude of, I'm here to inspire people. And then they ask you something you don't know. Your reaction will be completely different. Like so many women that I work with, they tell me that they get a question and afterwards they know that they knew the answer, but they were so blocked at the moment because they were so afraid of being asked something that they couldn't even access their own know-how. So more know-how wouldn't solve the problem, right? It's really, if you are in a situation, somebody asks you something like in private, they ask you something and you don't know it, what would you say if you're relaxed? If you're relaxed, you just say something like, that is a good question. Ah, yeah, I know somebody who knows that. Or why do you ask that? Do you have experience? Or what do you mean specifically? These are really good questions. If you don't know the answer, you just ask something back. But in order to do that, that will come naturally. I don't want you to take notes and write down exactly what I say, even though many people do that. What I want you to believe is that you will come up with these answers or questions, whatever. You will come up with that naturally, as you do all of the time. I know that. I trust you completely. You have that in you. There's not something more still that you have to learn. You do have that in you. If you talk to a colleague and they ask you a question that you don't know, naturally you react in a very natural way. So only why you don't do that when you're on a stage is not because you don't know how to do it. It's because of the inner dialogue you have that tells you a question. Exam. So really, what's the most important thing is that we change your mindset around yourself as an expert, around the situation. What do you think about the situation, what it is like? These are all unconscious thoughts, of course. You have never thought this is an exam situation. You never thought that deliberately. Otherwise, you would have seen for yourself that it's stupid. But we have like 95% of all of our thoughts are subconscious. That's what I do as a coach. I see, when I talk to somebody, I see their subconscious thoughts that shine through the words they say. And that is when we can solve them. Okay, so we find a different thought that helps so much. Okay, so the biggest objections. I'm going to write something down for a change. Our time is almost over. Okay. So I'm just going to say them. The biggest objections that I hear from women when it comes to presenting, they say, I've never done that before. And that is not true, because they have spoken before. They have even spoken in that language before. They talked to somebody before. So all of the things they did before, and maybe not exactly in that situation, but also you go on a holiday that, you know, in a place you have never gone before. So really, it's not a good reason. Children do new things all of the time, and they never think, I've never done that before. It's only around the age of 20 plus where we start thinking, oh, I've never done that before, so I can't do it. And that is when we stop learning. When we are under 20, we do all of the things for the very first time. We fail. We just don't care. We just do it again and again and again. And this is an important mindset that we want to re-establish in our minds, to be the child again. And well, just do it. So the first one is, I've never done this before. Bullshit. The next one is, I will fail. So the most important thing that I hear when I talk to a woman and she says, I'm afraid of failing. I asked her, well, what does failure look like? What would that look like for you? And then she looks at me like, well, okay. So yeah, what exactly would happen if you fail? What would that look like? Maybe I don't know what to say. What's the probability of that? Well, you write down some notes, for example. Okay. So then when you really face your fears, when you think about what would it really look like, what I'm afraid of, most of the fears just dissolve, because you can't even say what it would be. So failing altogether is not possible. It's just maybe at a certain point, you don't know what to say anymore. You take your notes. Maybe sometimes you can't find the right words. You start the sentence over. It's not really a problem. It's not failing altogether. failing could also be nobody shows up. So I invited 50 people and nobody shows up. Is that a failure? I don't know. Or 3 people show up. A failure is only if you don't do it at all, I would say. We fail ahead of time by not doing it at all. We're failing all of the time. And that is the kind of failure that we don't learn anything from. If we don't even try, we don't learn anything. We wait until we are perfect. We think we have just wait a little bit longer, then we'll be perfect somehow magically, and then we will do it. But it's the other way around. We just do it, and that is how we somehow get closer to whatever we call perfect. Then the next thing and the last thing is I will make a fool of myself or people will despise me. It's just about what will people think of me? And I've talked about that before. That is really the biggest fear, because failure, if nobody saw it, wouldn't be a problem, right? It's only if people watch me fail that it becomes a problem. If nobody knows about it. So really, what we're really afraid of is that people might have an opinion about us and a negative one. We never think about the people who might have a positive opinion about us because we do it. It doesn't come to our minds, right? So that is why we harness our thoughts and we direct them to, this is where we're going, positive direction. Don't think about the people who might have a negative thought about you. Hey, who might have a positive thought about me? Okay, so, wow, that was the most important thing I wanted to say. There is one more thing. So if you think you're afraid of public speaking, you are in good company. Because there are surveys where people get asked on the street, what are you afraid of? And then people say, as you might expect, they're afraid of death. But that is only number 2. What people say they are most afraid of is public speaking. And when I read that, it was really eye-opening for me. And I can relate to that. So people are afraid of death, but more so of public speaking. They would rather die than speak in public. So it's okay if you are afraid. And what I like about successful people, you know, that's my job. I train women to be successful. And what I like about this is that really we can see it every time we have a breakthrough. We have to break through fear. It's normal. It's just an emotion. It doesn't do anything. It's harmless. Nothing happens. It's just an emotion. We can feel emotions. They're just a chemical reaction in the body. A little sweat, a little hot ears, maybe a blush. I'm very good at blushing, by the way. I did it so much. Now I don't do it anymore. That's also because, maybe sometimes, but I don't care. I used to blush so deeply, like really purple, and it was so often. And I really decided at a certain point, look, I'm not gonna let my blushing come between me and my message. I do have a message and I want it to get out there. So I'm not gonna let my own blushing keep me from doing that. And if I have to blush, well, I blush. I don't care. And if people care, they're not my people. I mean, most people say, you know, that makes you human. That's like cute also to see a woman like you blush in a presentation. Whatever people think, I don't care. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't. I don't care. I've got a message. I'm going to get it out there no matter what. This is too blushing, because this is also a big fear of many women. What if I blush? Like, this would be a no-go. I don't want to blush, so I don't do it. Okay. Yes. And everything, and what I like, so that is what I wanted to say. What I like about so many successful people, they say that the difference between people who are successful and people who are not successful is that the successful people feel the fear and do it anyway. Not successful people feel the fear and then they don't do it because they think they can only do something if they feel okay. Fact is, you are okay. You feel an emotion, but you're totally fine. You're just human. You can go and do it anyway. Yeah, blushing is good for circulation. Sometimes it's okay. That's also a good thought. Like other people do a lot of sports to get that kind of blush that I get for free here. Yeah, that's also good. That's a good thought, a good supportive thought. Okay, we're at the end of the presentation and we're going to the Q&A session right now. So right after this, you will have the possibility to ask some more questions and very specific questions. You can even unmute yourself. I saw that some people raised their hands. So we will do it this way. If you have some input or some comment or some question, please raise your virtual hand and I'm going to pick you. Oh, we're going to do that. I don't know if I can do that. And then you can ask your questions and I will also go through the chat box. And if there are some more questions, I'm going to answer them. But before we go to the Q&A session, I wanted, because that's what we agreed on. So people who don't want to stay for the Q&A, you are really free to go. And I want to say, first of all, thank you, but I also want to invite you because I know how it is. We get some valuable input, we get some inspiration, and our enthusiasm is extremely high to, well, go out there and to do something, to talk on stage, to speak up more in meetings and whatever, but then we forget about it. That's also very human. And what I want to invite you is that I do have a coaching program. It's only in German. My podcast is also only in German. But, well, for the people who do speak German, I want to invite you to go to my website and check out the coaching program. It's a 12-month program where we really dive into these topics and we work on your positioning and your your self-esteem and all of that month by month. So I'm gonna type in, it's verenatschudi.com/coaching. Somebody, you did, that's a funny link. I don't know where that leads you. I'm gonna post mine as well. That's the one that I use. So yeah, that's what I wanted to invite you to, because you will have all the support you will need when all the fears come up and when you don't know how to, structure your presentation and how to ask if you can speak and how to invite people. And there's so much to it that we give support in the coaching program. Yes, and also because right now we are taking applications, which will be not possible for the next few months because we will close applications soon. So if you want to join, you can do that. Okay. So are you ready for the Q&A? So let me check. Okay, so for all of you who want to ask something in person, you can raise your virtual hand. And I will, in the meantime, go through the chat box and see what else we have here. because there were a lot of comments that were not answered. Okay, so here, for example, Sandra says, when you say you're an expert, it may challenge others to stump the band and prove you don't know what you say you do. That's also a funny thought. It's a funny thought that keeps you from even trying. So what happens is that we think we might get competition, right? And we want to avoid that. So there are two things I want to share about that. What I see very often is that women, well, I work with women only, so we speak up, but we do it in a very defensive way. Like when you have the thought, they don't agree that you're an expert, you're kind of defensive, right? And when you speak up and you do it in this defensive way, they get challenged. You challenge them to challenge you back, right? So that is something I see very often. The way we show up provokes other people to like tease us. It's really something you have to try it out. If you speak up in a meeting and you're completely relaxed, like open, first of all, somebody else says something opposite or might challenge your opinion, you won't take it personally. Only if you have the thought, they're trying to discredit me as an expert, that is when you take it personally, and you will not be able to enter like a neutral discussion about the topic. You will take it personally, you will close up, and you will shut yourself out of the discussion. So there are two things that happen. First of all, with your attitude, even though we think that we don't show it, that is not true. On a subconscious level, we all can feel what the other person is up to. So if you have like this defensive, you're in this defensive mode, the other person will feel it subconsciously and they will feel provoked. That is what happens. And then you will get the proof that you were right because it has happened. You thought it would happen and it has happened, so you were right. But you're really producing that result for yourself. That is one thing. And the other thing is, if you think that somebody is like they're against you, so the second thing is that you will provoke that. So the first thing is you will take it personally and you will, well, or the other way around. First thing is you provoke it, and the second thing is you will take it personally. Whereas when you don't have the thought, you won't even realize that it happened. Somebody says something and you don't have a thought about it. Like, okay, they have a different opinion. Well, what about that? So you stay in the topic and you won't go out of the meeting thinking that somebody wanted to discredit you. It's not about you. If you don't think of it like that, it's so deliberating. So that is when we can enjoy our jobs. If we're focused so much on ourselves, and really this is something that I see with presentations, what happens to us is when we get on stage or we open our mouth, and even long before that, we only think about ourselves. We think about, what does it look like when I speak? What do I exactly say? How does it sound? What do they think about me? What does it make? What does it mean about me? So all the thoughts are me centered. And that makes it impossible for us to really thrive. The only space where we can really be good is when we don't think about ourselves. We think about the subject. We think about the people who we talk to. So that is what we want to learn. Direct our thoughts away from us, and direct them to the people. Like, what is this person really saying? Why are they saying that? Is there something behind it? They might have some information I don't have. Or where do they come from? What do they really mean? Or there comes something to mind that is really helpful for the discussion, but you have to be in the topic and with the person opposite to you and not focused on yourself. Just watch your thoughts, what they do. When your thoughts are constantly about yourself and about what somebody, this reaction, what like somebody crunches. That was something I said. Maybe they just have a bellyache or something. We make it all mean about us. And really, it's most of the time, it's not about us. Because all of the other people do the same. And they always think everything else is about them. Yes. Yeah. So AO writes, wow, I never saw that point, that one person's opinion could be the opposite of 9 people's opinions. Yes. And that is so normal. Our brains are programmed by default in the way that we focus on the negative. And just knowing that is so helpful, because imagine you have a beautiful landscape, a beautiful setting. There are trees and flowers and butterflies and what else. And the only thing that we focus on is that maybe there in the back, there's a snake. So that snake, from our whole history, that one snake was really more important than all of the beautiful flowers and the butterflies. It's normal that our brains focus on the danger. But nowadays, it also keeps us from going out there and just being who we are and being at our best, which we really already are. That is something that you should really, if you only remember one thing, is that you already have everything in you that you need. You don't need any more anything. You already have it in you. Just your own thoughts block you from getting it out, from being who you want to be. And your own thoughts is something that is under your own control. You just need some training to get them where you want to have them. Okay. So yes, Annabelle wrote, the first time I did a conference, 1 hour on stage, full demo, I got a bad review from a person. She doesn't know anything because the computer bugged and she has to restart the program. That makes me think that there will be always haters, and that pushed me to continue my speaking journey. Yes, there will always be haters. And really, yeah, these are poor people. So what I think is also very helpful, just notice when we are critic. Every time we are criticizing somebody, we're really criticizing ourselves. When we look at a person and we think, she shouldn't do that, she doesn't look good in these trousers or whatever, it's really that we think about that ourselves as well. We wouldn't go on stage in these trousers, or we think that we don't want to go on stage because we don't have trousers that, you know, perfectly and so on. So we can use that as a mirror. Every time we think something negative about a person or also positive, it tells us more about ourselves than about the other person. And as soon as we establish a certain peace in ourselves with this other person and with us, it goes together. It's always the same. We become so much more generous with other people if we decide to be generous with ourselves. If we decide that we don't need to be perfect, that we're actually better the way we are, because perfect people are boring and Actually, nobody really likes perfect people, even though we might admire them somehow, but then who really is perfect? But that is something we might consider. We like people who are just humans, so we might as well allow ourselves to be humans. What else do we have here? I'm doing my best to turn every I don't know from, oh no, failed exam into great. I have an opportunity to learn. It's difficult and slow going. Imposter syndrome is real, but I'm trying to change my own mind and instant reactions. Yeah, you're doing the training. What might help you, Heidi, is to go from not trying to go from a thought you want to get rid of to the extreme opposite. That might feel false for you sometimes, or for many of us, it simply doesn't work because we ourselves, we hear us talk like, this is great. And we say to ourselves, you know, I don't believe you. We are spammed with positive thoughts and quotes all of the time on social media, and sometimes, and that simply doesn't work that way. We have to listen to ourselves. We have to be passionate, compassionate to ourselves. Like if you were your best friend. Your best friend, you wouldn't want your best friend to just come with a positive quote and not really listen to you. You would want your best friend to listen to you. And then at the end, she tells you, well, so do it anyway. You have these thoughts, but you can do it anyway. And that is sometimes the best and the most self-compassionate way to do it, is to listen to ourselves and say, you know what, my brain does its job. That's what it's programmed for. Nothing has gone wrong. I don't need to change it all together. Of course, I can like put new seeds in and choose new thoughts, but it will always also be in default mode somehow. And that is okay. And I can do it anyway. Yeah, if we don't fail, we don't even try. And we don't learn anything. So just yesterday I read a quote from Sir Winston Churchill, who said, success is, so his definition of success, how to do success even, he said, success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. And if he says so, and he's not the only one, why should it be different for us? Really? Okay. What else do we have here? Yeah, blushing is such a fear for so many people. Yeah, I always have been afraid to cry due to emotion, but after seeing a wonderful woman cry on stage during a conference, I thought it not so horrible, so funny. So many thanks to this wonderful woman. So many thanks. So listen to this, y'all. That was a woman who cried on stage. Maybe this is the very thing that you're afraid of. The worst thing that could happen to you. What if I cry? And yet there is somebody who says, that woman inspired me because she cried on stage. Isn't that wonderful? So what if you could think about your personal fears about failing? Or the list, I'm sure it will be a short list, but there are things that you define as failing. What if you could do them and think about them? There will be at least one person in the audience who will say, thank you that you did that, because now I know I can do it as well. Think about that. That would, for me, this would be such a good reason to fail right now. If I could inspire just one of you by doing that, by not remembering what I wanted to say, by blushing, by fainting, I don't know. If I could do that right now, only to inspire one of you, I would do it. Definitely. Okay, so I'm gonna just scroll. Do you have any tips for recommendations for the letting go to get to that I do not care? Yeah, well, do you have any tips for recommendations for the letting go to get to I do not care? I'm not sure if I understand that question exactly, but what you can do is simply decide. It's a decision. Sometimes we make it so much more difficult for ourselves, but really it's just a decision. Like I worked with a woman who had a hard time around her body, and she really thought she was always on a diet. She always tried to, do a lot of sports to be in better shape, and she never liked her body. And then she really made a decision while working with me. She was like, we talked about it, and then she made a decision and said, from that moment on, I'm gonna be okay with my body. I decide that I love it. It's a decision. I don't want to hate it anymore. I decide that I want to love it right now. And that's what she did. And she stopped dieting. She's still doing sports, but for fun. She's enjoying it. She's doing it for herself and not against herself. So that one decision changed everything. And she doesn't have, I mean, she's a beautiful woman. It wasn't that the problem. It was only in her head. So if you think you don't want to care, you just don't care. Decide right now that you don't care. Very often, who speaks up is seen better than who is less vocal, and the content of what they say is not that important. I tend to speak only when I really have to add value or opinions, not just to speak, but I am seen as a less vocal person, too less vocal, and in some meetings as one that does not add value. So that is one of a thought. That is not a fact, right? Let's start there. Even if people tell you you don't add value, that is not a fact. That is just their opinion might be. But I just assume they didn't even say that. It's your thoughts. So you think that they think that you don't add value. And also the thought, I think there are two things happening right now. So you think that they think that, and that keeps you even from talking more. And the thought that there is another thought in there that says, I tend to speak only when I really have to add value. What exactly is value? And that is a typically female thing that is proven statistically, that we define our value only by the work we do, by the content. But value is so much more. Imagine somebody comes up to you, gives you a warm handshake and a smile. That is also value. And notice that many people in management, the higher the position, the better they are at giving warm smiles and shaking hands. That is really something that they are paid for. Because if they wouldn't do that, they wouldn't be in that position. So success in the realm of, in the professional field is based on so much more other types of value than really the know-how and the expertise and exactly the words you say. And once we understand that, it will be easier to also get a promotion, because we keep ourselves from getting the promotions, getting all the praise and being promoted, being asked to speak as an expert and so on, because we limit ourselves in our thinking. We limit ourselves to the exact content that we bring. What if only the energy that you brought into the meeting was value? The energy that you bring into the meeting. What if the questions that you brought, that you said, what if this is all so valuable? What if you summarizing a point that somebody stated, somebody used 7 minutes to explain something, and you summarize it in 1 sentence? You didn't say something new, but you brought so much value to the meeting. So when I hear that thought, I hear the subconscious thought speaking out of your words. So I see that what you see as value is so little, but you have so much more to contribute. And once you open to that idea that maybe even your presence, like your eye contact, like your nodding, is value for the whole meeting, because if it wasn't there, it would be different. And that is all value. And that will keep you from, also notice that your brain is thinking about yourself in the situation. If you would just not think about yourself like children do, they don't think about themselves. They don't watch themselves from the outside while they do something. That makes it so much easier to just speak up, to just say something. And then the reactions would also not mean anything about us. It would just be, well, content. It would just be words. It would just be their opinions and so on. But we make it mean everything that they do and what they say and what they don't say. We make it mean things about ourselves. And that is really what makes it so hard for us. How do you suggest to handle negotiations, not with customers, but for example, in internal projects with other colleagues having different requirements and opinions? What's the problem here? I can't seem to find a problem. Negotiations with other colleagues, and they have different requirements and opinions. So if I read that and it is a question, I just assume that it's a problem, and I don't see a problem here. So ask yourself, why do you see it as a problem if there is no negotiation, if people have different opinions, if people have different requirements? That's the world. Welcome to our human world, where people are different, have different priorities, have different opinions. Nothing has gone wrong. And it's not against you. And it's just how the world works. And it's also fun, So that might be a thought that I can offer you here, that is really fun. I like negotiations. They're like sports, like brain sport. Like in some countries, in the German-speaking countries, this is not so common, but you have the debating sessions where you really train to debate. And it's like a sports, even for youngsters, they do that already. And I think it's really valuable. We don't do it here. We see it as if we have different opinions, it's a conflict. Conflicts need to be avoided at all times. But conflicts really are a great chance to find out what other people really are up to. Also to deepen the relationship. If you have a relationship and never have a conflict, you never really talk with each other. You never find out what's going on in the other person, because it stays at a very superficial level. So this is about conflicts, but I wouldn't see a negotiation as a conflict. It's just like sports, it's fun. If everybody had the same requirements, everybody had the same opinions, imagine what this world would be like. Everybody had the same priorities, everybody had the same values, everybody had the same style, everybody had the same haircut. I don't know. I wouldn't want to live in a world like that. Okay. So, yes. Did I miss anything from, can you tell me, Olivia or Annabelle, were there any people who raised their hands or important questions that I missed?
I did not see any raising hands. Also, I think you've covered all the questions, at least there were some questions, but they came up multiple times. So I think you've answered them all. And there was one question, I'm not sure if you have responded to that one.
Okay.
How do we know after failing so many times to keep trying, or time to change industry or role?
Okay. Can you tell me again, how does it start?
How do we know after failing so many times?
Okay, I have it.
Okay.
After failing so many times to keep trying, or time to change industry and role. So the question would be, what exactly is failing? What exactly does failing mean? Ao, do you want to unmute yourself? Do you want to raise your hand so we can have a discussion here? Or you can also write again in the chat box if that's more comfortable for you. So what I think I understand here, okay, she's coming up.
I just unmuted her. So if you want to speak up, or if you just feel comfortable in writing in a chat, either way.
Okay. Okay, so what I see, okay, she'll write. So I would have to know a little more about what exactly is failing. Because I think many times we think we failed, but it's only a little thing that didn't work and the rest was so good. So again, we focus on something like, I got one negative feedback, or I got 10 negative feedbacks, but I didn't hear from the 99 other persons that. So I really want to know, what exactly does failing mean in this situation? Okay, just not getting the domain knowledge, especially in high-tech industry, lots of programmers where I'm not a programmer. So that, but is that failing? So I assume you do have a different role as the programmers. Like you're, for example, you might be a project manager. So by definition, you don't have to know all that the programmers know. And what I would establish is a system that helps you, instead of trying to catch up with their knowledge, which you will never, because they are doing that all day long, and you will never catch up because you don't do that all day long. And establishing a system that helps you. From my experience, I told you before that I changed industries several times, and I was in management position. At a certain point, I changed countries, I changed industry, everything all together. And I was in a management position, and I got, well, they promoted me into the management team, and I had 6 teams that I was leading, and altogether it was 60 people. And I had no clue what they were doing. No idea. So the first meeting that I had with each of them was, okay, tell me what you do. Show me around. And So, and of course, and I didn't tell myself that I would have to know more than them. And I didn't even have to understand exactly what they did, because they were the experts in what they were doing, but they couldn't do my job because it was me. I was doing the job. So, and I was the one who took decisions, but I needed their information. So what I built was a system that supported me, a system of me learning to communicate better. I had to ask the right questions. I had to find out who were the people who could answer my questions best. Like, these are all skills that we need in leadership. We don't have to do the jobs of the other people, but we have to do our own job. So part of the system was to ask the right questions. If I didn't understand it, I had to ask again and again until I understood it. So for them, it was a challenge to explain it to me as if I was a third grader. I would tell them this way, like, explain it to me as if I was a third grader. And actually, that's something that people in management do. That's a typical phrase people in management use. If they talk to experts, they might be external consultants, they might be internal people, whatever, but you don't have to be embarrassed if you ask a question like that. So asking the right questions and communicating in a way that supports you. So the question is, where exactly did you fail? What's exactly the fail? Okay, so that was already enlightening and helpful. I always thought I had to catch up to others, but now I see, thank you. Yeah, so try to become good at what you need to do and not try to be them. Okay, so sometimes it's just our role is just to bring two people together and let them do the tech talk. And we just, well, nod and say, okay, so do you have any more questions? Or do you have anything more important that you want to share? So oftentimes that is important for management, for leadership positions. And even if you're not in a leadership position, but you want to like be seen as the next potential leader, you can ask yourself, what kinds of productive questions can I ask? Like, is there anything more we should consider? It's a very valuable question, because if nobody asks, you might run into some risks that you didn't even think about. So that is one very helpful question. And also summarizing and just summarizing and saying, did I understand this right? And then you summarize what you just heard. And often it's that somebody says, no, it's not exactly this way. And the rest of the people in the room will say, thank God she asked that, because I didn't get it right either. So really, your value that you bring to a situation is so much more. Focus on what you already have and what you are really contributing instead of what you are lacking. It's so much. You already have it in you. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I would like to close for now. I want to thank you so much for all of your questions. I think that's so valuable. For if it was just me talking here, it would, like, look at that. Look at that. If I was just talking here to you, it wouldn't have been half as valuable as the questions that people asked. And so I could, of course, respond, but that all of the questions made the whole webinar so much more valuable. Can you see that? I think for all of us, we enjoyed it so much more because people asked questions. They just said what they didn't know. That is also so much value that you can bring into any situation. Okay, so we have one person raising their hand. Is there another question?
Yeah, hi. My name is Lakshmi. I'm from India. And first of all, thank you so much for today. You're speaking here. And it's so much insightful information that I'm learning. And I just have one question on failure. Um, See, sometimes I know that I don't fail, but still I have that lack of, moving one step ahead or putting my step ahead and doing that thing done. So what do you suggest in that case as what do you do next step as into like
Mm,
there's nothing to lose, but sometimes there's something to lose because let's say for example I know about some application or some visual tools that I'm working along. So I don't have enough skill earlier. So I used to think that I don't have any skill because everybody's moving along ahead. I was comparing myself with them, and then I stopped comparing myself with them for time being, and then I saw myself growing up, and then I got a pause there. I was not able to move further. So but I know what happens when I move further. I can grow
mm,
magnanimously, but that is like 1,000 times multifold, or maybe I don't know, humongous change can happen,
yeah.
but I'm still stuck
So,
at that.
so your question was
How to overcome that,
failure?
fear of unknown or uncertainty.
Yes. Yeah. So I would really, what I would do is make it more specific. What is exactly failure? And you mentioned one thought. I mean, I heard one thing that just that that sticked in my mind is that you said sometimes you have something to lose. So you can't just think I have nothing to lose. And that is really something that keeps us from taking risks. If we think we have something to lose, right? And here again, you think of what you can lose, but do you also think of what you can gain? What you can win? So by avoiding losing something, you avoid winning altogether. That is a very good question. So every time you don't know if you should do it or not, you can ask yourself, what can I lose? And what can I win? And most of the time, what you can lose is just you have a bad time, like one night, not very good sleep, and maybe a little more sweat than usually, maybe some, I don't know. But that is all that you can lose, like a little bit of comfort. You lose the comfortable feeling, but what you can win on the other side is so much. You can win experience, you can win new relationships, you can win a new positioning, you can, win new knowledge, and all of that is what you can win. Also, every opportunity that we take opens up 10 more opportunities. That is also true. So there is so much we can win. Does that help? And also, you mentioned you did compare yourself to others and you stopped that. So also, when we compare ourselves to others, notice that we compare ourselves to only the few who we consider better than us. We never compare ourselves with the people who we consider not better than us. We think they're boring. But yeah, also here, our brain goes in the direction where what is missing and not the direction, hey, I have so much. I have so much to share already. Was that helpful for you?
Yes, Verena. Thanks. Yeah, I I I was already thinking, I mean, whenever I was thinking about losing, what am I going to lose? What am I going to lose? But I never thought about this aspect of what am I going to gain
Yes.
out of that. That is some new approach, which you certainly had put a thought in my head, and I would like to certainly focus on that now.
Mm.
There's one other question, like I suppose at times in our life, we tend to seek help from others, and how much ever, despite the effort that you put in, you don't get help from others,
Hmm.
and that demotivates at certain level point at a certain point of time. And obviously, for either a loss or a gain, there is point of no return. That means we cannot turn back ourselves at one certain stage. So my question here is, when you put so much of effort in getting or seeking help from others because you want it so badly to move along
Hmm.
further, and but you don't get it, so how do you affirm yourself in a positive
Hmm.
note and change the perspective?
Yeah. So the question is, what do you really want? Because what you described right now is you want the help, but the help is not your end goal. You want something else. And then you think you need a certain help from somebody to get there. What if that help was not available at all? You would have to figure out a different way to get there. Maybe you're blocking yourself, your own creativity right now, because you think there's only one way to get there. And that's through this, what do you call help? Maybe a different person. But this person doesn't want to help you. And that's their right. I mean, everybody can decide for themselves. And I wouldn't make my own goals dependent on other people's decisions. So if one person doesn't want to help you, there are 1,000 other people who you can ask, maybe. So you're not dependent on one person. You can ask somebody else, or you can get creative and find some other way of how you can get there. Have you ever brainstormed like 25 ways to reach your goal? And that help that you're talking about is just one of the 25. But then there must be at least 24 others.
Yeah, I did. I until the age of 26 or 27, I never had any goals in life. When people used to ask me, what do you want to become in life, I used to just say nothing and look up in the sky or look up to the towards the roof. Used to have nothing in as a head, but somewhere somehow I read the book of goals by Brian Tracy, and that changed my perspective. And I had, from that point of time until date, always had goals. uh, Goals had a plan A and plan B and a plan C and a master plan, and whatnot. And I'm not looking back again after that event. And what you said is like it's a very valid point. And having seeking out for help is not the end. If one person is not helping, then
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very valid. I got a gist of this sentence that you said. We need to look out for an alternative for ourselves.
Yes.
Every man for themselves. Like, yep. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thanks, Verena. I would like to keep in touch with you, and if there's any positivity aspect that is coming big, that's happening big in my life, I would like to get it back to you and notify you on that.
Of
Maybe
course.
it's because of
Yeah.
this event that I'm attending today. My life is taking 180 degrees turn.
Wow. Yeah, you can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. And all of you who want, just contact me on LinkedIn. I'd be so happy. And I want to mention one thing. So I don't know what how to pronounce your name exactly, but you were probably the only man on this whole panel, I guess. And you were the one who spoke up. And I think that's such a shame for the rest of us, because when do you have the possibility to be coached by a professional like me? Usually people pay a lot of money to be able to do that. So why are you shy? Just one thought that I see very often with women is they think, I don't want to bother, you know, maybe they don't have the time. There are so many other people who want to ask something, and why should I, you know, step in the front row, and I'm not that important. My question is not that important. That is really a thought that I see so often in women. And I honestly, I want to help you to see that thought. And Verena can read minds. Yeah, I know. That's what I do. I work in the minds of women the whole day. So yes, we don't want to bother anybody, but it really comes from the thought, everybody else is much more important than me. So also I'm not worthy. And that is a thought that we don't want to think, but we do have that thought, not consciously, but subconsciously. And it comes to light when we say, I don't want to bother. You know, also when you, for example, you knock on somebody's door and you say, can I disturb you for a second? It's like, no, hell no, you're not disturbing anybody. And if you, at the end of an email, you say, sorry, or sorry to interrupt, or I just have a little thing, just a little question, and so on. This is how we women speak so many times. And that comes from the mindset of, I'm not worthy of their time, of their attention, of their money, of all of that. And it's really just in our heads. So if we could change that, it would change the way we negotiate our salaries, the way we show up, the way we speak up. So all of that really comes down to this one thought, I'm not worthy. And I want to encourage you to reverse that thought and really work on that. And just, you are worthy, 100% worthy, and nothing can change that. No know-how, if you have more certificates, no more experience, nothing can change your worth. It's just perfect. It's 100% already. You will never be able to be more worthy than you are already. So yes, you are important. So all the hands should fly up right now. Heidi.
Yes, thank you. So I have another question on like imposter syndrome and on battling that. So I've been trying to fight imposter syndrome by simply like ignoring it. So simply being louder than like the voice inside my head, and that helped with, let's say, the outside perception. So people perceive me as an expert, people perceive me as a role model. But every time people ask me something and I don't know the answer, I'm back to zero. I'm like, oh God, why don't I know this? How can I even consider myself an expert if I don't know this? And if people tell me, hey, I look up to you, you inspire me, my initial reaction will always be, oh God, why don't you get yourself a proper role model? Like, what is wrong with you? So I'm trying to not get back to zero and maybe just get back to like a 7. And I'm wondering, like, how can I work on that?
You know, that's also funny because it's also a thought. The 0 is a thought and not a fact. And the 7 is also a thought. So actually it's you yourself who thinks about where you're at, that you think it's a 0. What I would suggest here is that you see what your brain is doing. You are already very good because you see where your thoughts are tending to. You watch yourself thinking. Not many people do that. If they're not trained to do that, they don't do that. They think it's a fact. They don't see that it's just a thought, which is optional. So you are already at a 7, I would say, already. You watch yourself thinking a thought, but you don't believe it anymore. You see that you are thinking it. And you don't see it as a fact, just as a thought. You're already at a 7. So what's really the problem with what you're experiencing is not that the thoughts are coming, is that the real problem is that you are beating yourself up because you are having these thoughts. So the only solution, you will never, take your brain out and get a supernatural brain that never has these thoughts. I think you wouldn't like that either. You just have a human brain, and your human brain offers you these thoughts. The only thing that you can do is when the thoughts come, you see them and you just accept that they are there. So for me, these thoughts come as well. My brain offers me these thoughts and I see them. And sometimes it's like a buffet, right? You have all of the different thoughts that you can think. It's just your brain, maybe like by default, you might tend to the dessert section, which is where we tend to go. Everybody tends to a different section, but what you do is deliberately you say, no, we're not going there right now. We're going to the fruit section, veggies and salads. That's what we do because we know that's good for us. So that is what mind management is all about. It's not about getting rid of the dessert. We don't have to get rid of the desserts. They will always come. They will always be offered to us. What we do is we see the desserts and we say, you're still there, old friends. I know you. I know how you taste. And sometimes we taste them and then we feel a little bellyache afterwards. And then we decide deliberately to go to the fruit section and then we feel better. But the desserts will never go away. So don't beat yourself up if you ate some dessert and it doesn't help. You already ate it. The moment that you realize what you're doing is when you can change it. And what you do is when you beat yourself up is you eat more dessert. And that is really what people do who have like overeating problem, is when they feel bad about themselves, they eat more. So the cycle, to break the cycle here, is just be very generous with yourself. Be compassionate and see that your brain is just a human brain that does what it is programmed for, and that is completely okay. And the moment you see it, don't start beating yourself up. Instead, accept and be self-compassionate about yourself and say, now I see what I've been doing. Let's go over to the salad section. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. That helps immensely. That's a very interesting perspective. Thank you.
Yeah. So that is also a sort of perfectionism that I see with many people, especially with the women that I work with, is that we want to be perfect. We want to get rid of all the negative thoughts and just, why can't I just be perfect right now? Okay, so Cami has another question. Anelia.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to add to the previous one I have another question, but I wanted to add that my therapist likes to say, yeah, you say, oh, I'm progressing, but I'm not progressing fast enough. So, there is a development, already, and you're already there. You understand your thought patterns, but you just want it to be gone now, because that's how it's done, right? Sorry, it's a little point on the previous one. Another thing I wanted to ask, there is a real confidence, and then there is a confidence that you project. So as an example, I have been performing since I was like 12 in conferences and such, and I'm very good at presenting this super upbeat, confident person. I can do it all, I can say it all, I can answer all the right questions, but deep inside, it's not the confidence that I have. And I just would love to match those two, because what I see is that people often have this perception of me that I give them, which is this confident person. And I have heard it from managers like, from a CEO of the company in which I was working. She goes like, yeah, but Anela, you're so much more confident than I am. And I'm like, how can this be? And this is just brain puzzling. She's a CEO, she has team, manages millions, and yet she feels like I'm more confident, but I'm not confident at all. I'm just good at presenting it. And another thing that gives me, that's another point about this perceived confidence, is that when you appear as so confident, people think that you do not need help. Or even if you ask for it, people think that they don't have to give it to you because you'll be fine otherwise. Because you're so upbeat and go-getter, and you can just be fine on your own.
So what's the problem about that?
Because
so what do you really want? Because you said you wanted to match how you feel inside with how you show up and how you are perceived. So what you really want is to be authentic, and that means not to be seen as that self-confident, right?
I can't change.
Want to feel as confident as you.
Yes, because the thing is that I'm trying not to. I tried really hard to not be perceived as extremely confident person. I even shortened my name so it's easier for the people to consume my personality, but I can't do it for a longer period of time. It just comes out. And so what I want is to not have this kind of mental mismatch. And I would like to feel as the person that I'm perceived by other people. And I'm just not sure how to get there.
I think you are making a problem out of what is not a problem at all.
Sounds like me.
Yes. Can that be? Because what we were talking about before is what's really the problem is that we make it all mean something about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We are watching ourselves doing something, whatever somebody says, we make it mean something about us. And all of it is only we just watching ourselves, thinking about ourselves. And that makes it so hard and also uninteresting, really, because I know everything about myself, and the other people I don't know. So I find other people actually really so much more interesting. Look at what your thoughts are doing. Your thoughts are, you're spending so much time and energy thinking about yourself and how you are perceived and how you're feeling inside, and that is not okay. What about just deciding that it's not a problem? Imagine, I think also you say like it's a fact that people perceive you in a certain way. I would like to suggest that you think everybody perceives you in a different way. Somebody said this, other people said this, maybe the majority of the people perceive you in a certain way, but also it's never the same. It's very subjective. So don't make it a big problem. Can you hear me? I mean, I don't hear you.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. It's 8 p.m. Yes. And I'm afraid that Tableau will kick us off if we don't stop. I am sorry to be the bad guy here because we really have a good time and it was very enlightening conversation, but I don't know how many more minutes we have before this Zoom meeting close. Do you want to say something to close the session, Verena?
No, it's it's totally fine. I really thank you for your openness, also for the questions that came up. I would like to invite you again to my coaching program if you want to. It's in German, I know. All the people who would like to stay in contact with me, just add me and write me a little note so I know where you come from on LinkedIn. Of course, I'm on Instagram as well and so on, but I would really appreciate if you texted me a little note. And there are so many more questions. Maybe you can take the question to LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever, and I will come back to you. Okay, so thank you very much. It has been a pleasure for me.
It was a real pleasure for us too, and I hope that you will inspire so many women that wants to speak to our next event. Please contact us. Thank you very much. I will close the recording now.
Thank you so much to you, Verena, and to all of you. I felt super inspired. I heard so many statements which I felt related to, and that's just makes us stronger, I think, in this community. So thank you so much.